We are just 5 days away from the NFL draft, and my goal is to give my 5 favorite options for the Jacksonville Jaguars each day of the NFL draft. And so in this video, I'm talking about my 5 favorite options for day 1, round 1 next Thursday, and then hopefully either super late Thursday or early Friday, I'll drop my 5 favorite options for day 2, which is rounds 2 and 3, and then that Friday evening or Saturday morning, my 5 favorite options for day 3, which is rounds 4 through 7. So kicking off, number 1, my favorite option for the Jacksonville Jaguars in round number 1 on Thursday night is to trade up to about picks 8 or 9 for wide receiver Rome Odunze. And I've been on this train for several months now. Unfortunately, I feel like this train is starting to get a little more steam. But I think he is an incredible fit for the Jaguars. I think he has a very, very high floor and also a very high ceiling with the potential to be an all-pro level wide receiver, which we haven't seen in Jacksonville since Jimmy Smith. So over 2 decades. I think this could be a perfect fit with Trevor Lawrence. Rome Odunze was a guy who balled out. He dominated at Washington. He just put up big-time numbers each and every game this past season. Every game but one, he had over 80 yards. He finished the season at Washington with 92 catches, 1,640 yards, 13 touchdowns, finishes number 1 in contested catches. And a lot of people say he's not a great route runner because of that stat, but he's actually a really good route runner too. He's just a great all-around receiver. Reception Perception on Twitter, you can go check it out, said that he is the first in 5 years to have a success rate at every single route in the 2023 season. He put up over 1,000 yards in 2022 as well. 6'3", 212, 39-inch vertical, 4.4, 40-yard dash, and to me, just not really any weaknesses. So a really safe bet. So that's why I think this is the best option, because it's also, to me, the most affordable option for the Jaguars to trade up and land one of the big 3 wide receivers. Because I think Marvin Harrison is probably going to go around 3 or 4. Maybe he falls to 5, and then that becomes really interesting. But who else is calling to trade up? Malik Nabers, I think, will be in that 5 to 6 range. And then I think that Rome Odunze is going to be right around that 8 to 9 range, with number 8 being the perfect option to me. I think you can give away some draft capital in 2025 and a little bit of draft capital and go get a home run slam dunk pick in Rome Odunze. That is my favorite option for the Jaguars. Before I give my number 2, let me know your thoughts on number 1. Do you want the Jaguars to go trade up if they were able to make a pick and get up to around 8 or 9 for Rome Odunze? Would you do it? So I'm going to grade this move, unless they just have a horrific trade, I grade this move as an A+ for the Jaguars. Number 2 is very similar. I'm just really high on each of these big 3 wide receivers. I think Jaguars, the goal on day 1 has to be land either a wide receiver 1 or a CB1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So number 2 is trade up to pick number 5 or number 6 and land wide receiver Malik Nabers from LSU. He just crushed it at LSU. He joins a long list now of wide receivers for the Tigers who not only dominate in college but come in and dominate in the pros, and I think Nabers is going to be that as well. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, and was just amazing at his pro day. Nearly 42-inch vertical, 6 foot, 200 pounds, ran a low 4.3, and his speed, his acceleration, his yards after catch are all things that the Jaguars have just not had for a long time, and would give Trevor Lawrence an immediate day 1 wide receiver 1 star receiver. And so I love that option for the Jaguars. Nabers in 2023 for the Tigers had 89 catches, 1,569 yards, 14 touchdowns. And again, that's against high-level SEC teams. And so another fantastic option. I have it just below my Rome Odunze option because it's, of course, going to cost more to get into that pick 5 or pick 6 range. I don't see any way that the Giants pass on Nabers. And so I think you have to get into number 5 or number 6 range. And you also may be competing and trading in some other teams that are trying to trade up for quarterbacks. So if you're a Jaguars fan, to me, what you want to see is you want to see chaos the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks. You're cheering for a lot of teams to trade up, someone to give a lot of picks, go up and get a J.J. McCarthy. Hey, maybe someone will come up and try and get a Michael Penix after running a 4.4 40-yard dash, which I don't know about you, but that was shocking because he did not run at all in college. So if you're a Jags fan, cheer for chaos, whether that means they trade up for one of the big three or just one of the top 10 overall guys falls to pick 17. So option number 1, trade up to about pick 8 or 9 range for wide receiver Odunze. Number 2, trade up to 5 or 6 for Malik Nabers. And then number 3 is, okay, let's say we stay put at 17. This is where I have the cornerbacks rated higher than the next wide receiver group. I think of one of what I'm considering the top 3, not necessarily the big 3 because they are definitely a step below the top 3 wide receivers. But one of the top 3 cornerbacks falls to the Jaguars at pick 17. I think that is a very good pick. So option 2 with Malik Nabers, I would grade that about an A, maybe an A- if it's not as good of a trade. But if it's a good trade, a win-win, I would give that an A. I give this option a low A-. I would be very happy with this, but I'm not jumping up and down screaming like I would be if the Jaguars go trade up for Nabers or Odunze. In my big 3, my top 3 cornerbacks are Quinyon Mitchell, and then the Bama boys, Terrion, Arnold, and Kool-Aid McKinstry. I've been really high on Mitchell and on Arnold. I think they're 1A, 1B, but Kool-Aid McKinstry is a guy that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. Some people have him as a late first or even early second round pick, and I think that's crazy. He was the best cornerback in college football in 2022. Most likely was playing through an injury in 2023 as he went to go test at the combine and couldn't compete because they found an injury, had to have a minor surgery, and then he has a great pro day. Goes and runs a 4.4, which there was questions about his speed. Those are put to bed. Any of these 3 cornerbacks would be a great fit for the Jaguars, for new defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen. There's some question marks about cornerback. Is Campbell going to be able to come back and play that 2022 very, very high elite level after having a very bad season with a lot of injuries? And Darby, I like as a free agency pickup, but he's not your future. He's already 30 years old. Maybe you have 1 to 2 more good seasons out of him, but I think you need to have a playmaker at cornerback. And so if you stay put at 17, one of those 3 guys are there. I really do like that pick. I think it's a low A-. And then at option number 4, this would be my trade back option. So if you don't like the talent available at pick 17, I think you can trade back to about the mid-20s and land one of those next 2 guys in what I have as the next tier of wide receivers. And that'd be A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas Jr. Both these guys are big-bodied receivers, over 6'2", over 200 pounds, and both ran low 4.3s. And so the potential is still there to be a wide receiver 1. The potential is still there to be a high-level Pro Bowl level wide receiver, but there is more risk to both these guys, I believe, than the top 3. And so, but if you love them, if you have them graded really high, there is potential in my book to trade down to mid-20s. You got to beat, Buffalo Bills. You got to beat the Ravens, the Chiefs, a lot of wide receiver hungry teams at the end of round 1. But if you can go about 23, 24, 25 and get a lot of draft capital to move back 6, 7, 8 spots, that could be a very good move as well. Doug Peterson talked twice at the Combine about the potential of trading back. We had success in round 1 doing it last draft where we loved Anton Harrison. He was our guy. And we were able to trade back twice, get some extra draft capital, and still land our guy in Anton Harrison. If that is an option, I think it is a good one. I would grade this one at about a B to a B+, depending on the trade, depending on what we're able to get back in terms of picks. But both these guys have extremely high potential. They would have great fits. Jaguars, other than Gabe Davis, don't have a lot of big-bodied, great speed receivers. And Gabe Davis, of course, is not necessarily a speed receiver, but a big-bodied go up and get it. And so these guys could be vertical threats. These guys could be guys that can also go up and get it, both at double-digit touchdowns in 2023 for their college teams. And then number 5, and I only rate this lower just because of some difficulty, I would think, in the trade and also pay, because there's talk about signing Trevor Lawrence to a long-term deal here in the short-term future. But number 5 would be pull the trigger and trade for Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver from the 49ers, and find some way to get back pick 31 from the 49ers as well. I don't know exactly what that would look like. I think you do a first round pick swap. I think you'd have to throw in round 2 as well, and then potentially a 2025 draft pick as well. And my only hesitation of putting this a little bit lower, number 1, is the 49ers are tough trade partners. You know they're going to get a good deal. Then number 2, you've got to pay Brandon Aiyuk once you sign him. You're not going to give up a lot of draft capital and only get him for 1 year. You're going to sign him to a long-term deal, which, yes, we do have the cap space now that we've re-signed Josh Allen, but we also have to think about paying Trevor Lawrence a big-time contract. So I love the thought of getting Trevor a proven wide receiver 1, but I like the draft options a little bit better than trading. But I would still give this a solid B, depending on the trade itself. Again, there's a lot of variables into what that would look like, but I think it is still a very good, and I would still consider it to be a top 5 option for the Jacksonville Jaguars on day 1, on round 1. So again, number 1 to me, trade up to about picks 8 or 9. Go get wide receiver Odunze, wide receiver 1, superstar, hard worker, Mr. Reliable, a beast at wide receiver, a big body guy who can go up and get it. Number 2, trade for a speedster, a lightning quick, yards after catch, nightmare to cover, nightmare to tackle. Trade up to 5 or 6 for wide receiver Malik Nabers from LSU. Option number 3, stay at pick 17. Go get one of these top corners in the draft, either Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo, or the Bama boys, the cornerbacks, Terrion, Arnold, or Kool-Aid, McKinstry, and have them eventually be your CB1 of the future for the Jaguars. Option number 4, trade back about 5, 6, 7 spots. Go get one of the tall, speedster, vertical threats in either A.D. Mitchell from UT or another LSU wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. And option number 5, find a way to trade for wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. Still get that 31 back and go get a cornerback at the end of the first round. Maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry is sitting there. Again, a guy that I love. But it would all be dependent on what that trade would look like. But let me know, what is your favorite option for the Jaguars of those 5? Drop that in the comments. Which one would you like to see on Thursday night? Or do you have a different option? What would be your favorite option or your top 5 favorite option for the Jacksonville Jaguars? The NFL draft is almost here. I hope it's a big one for the Jaguars. It's going to be a lot of fun. And let's make it happen, Trent Baalke.